Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. World Children's Day is UNICEF's annual day of action for children by children. On November 20th every year, we celebrate World Children's Day by tasking kids and adults around the world to reimagine a better future for every child. On today's episode of the Osasu Show, I share my thoughts on the implications of UNICEF's recent concerns over the future of Nigerian children, their state of mental health, and their challenges and ability to compete favorably for global opportunities. Don't go anywhere, it promises to be a revelatory episode. Welcome back. In a recently published report titled The Changing Childhood Project by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF, in collaboration with Gallup, an American analytics and advisory company based in Washington, D.C., Nigerian children and young adults are indicated to be increasingly under the most pressure to succeed globally, even with limited opportunities and support from the government. The report, which was released to commemorate the 2021 World Children's Day marked annually on November 20th, noted that young people in Nigeria are increasingly facing mental health challenges, with 1 in 6 young Nigerians aged 15 to 24 saying they feel depressed, worried, nervous, anxious, and have little interest in doing things. In the area of finances, young Nigerians again showed a high level of concern, with 74% of females and 66% of males worried they don't have enough money for food. UNICEF Nigeria's representative Peter Hawkins, in his reaction, noted that children and young people in Nigeria clearly have a high level of concern about many and varied issues compared to their peers in other countries. We must deploy all arsenal at our disposal to ensure the state of mental health of our youths is positively improved. Because as eloquently stated in Proverbs 23 verse 7, as a man thinketh, he becomes. We cannot succeed beyond what we can imagine. We'll take a short break right now, and when we return, we'll be speaking with a mental health expert to shed more light on the implications of UNICEF's report. Don't go anywhere. North to South Africa, East to West Africa, TOS TV Network is your digital-first Pan-African news network, bringing you news from across the continent. Visit our website www.tostvnetwork.com and follow us on social media at TOS TV Network on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Welcome back. I'm now being joined by Chinyere Ugo Onyekwere, who is a clinical psychologist at Neem Foundation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. So we saw the report by UNICEF to commemorate World Children's Day, which clearly shows that 1 in 6 children in Nigeria are suffering from depression. Mm-hmm. What is the way forward? How do we deal with this?
First of all, I must say that the statistic is quite scary. I think it's more than depression, and if we did more examination, we would find that there's a lot more. One of the things that we can do about it is education and advocacy, and then proper treatment. Having this conversation now is all about advocacy and education, because it's important that we realize that children actually have mental health challenges. It's one of those things that we don't really pay attention to because sometimes it goes undiagnosed. Sometimes we don't pay attention. We just chuck it to, oh, it's childhood behavior, oh, it's adolescent behavior, and we don't pay attention to it. So there's need for us to constantly talk about it, because talking about it educates people, and there's putting the word out there, and there's advocacy. What we can do about it, like I said earlier, is advocacy, education, and proper mental health support for children. And that goes to the family, that goes to speaking to the school systems, the guardians, and the people that are in charge of these young people about providing the right supports for them, because we need to stop taking it for granted when our young ones come and tell us that they are going through a hard time. We always say, you have not seen life, or you're too small to understand life. And we just don't listen. It's important for parents to stop and listen without judgment. I think that's where the difference is, because a lot of the times parents are quick to say, go and sit down, there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine, and we don't listen. When we don't create the environment for our children to be able to come up to us and talk, we find that we begin to create a distance and a gap, and we're unable to help them. So education and advocacy and the proper mental health support is what we need to support our young people. And it also starts from the family. Families, parents, teachers, guardians, we need to start to pay more attention to the mental health of our loved ones, the mental health of our children, because, like the statistics says, 1 in 6, that's a big number.
That is a big number, and it's quite glaring. You talked about the fact that people need to listen. That includes the family members, the government, like I talked about in my introduction, and support groups in general. But what exactly do we need to listen to? What are some of the signs of mental health issues that we need to be looking out for? Because we know there's social media now. Everyone can quickly get their messages out there. People tweet before they think. People, put their personal lives and their worries on social media, hoping for, the public to come to their aid. However, they find it more difficult to talk to people they're even close with and they're sharing the same house with. So for those people who live in the same homes with them, for those people who are close to them, what are some signs they should look out for if the people that are going through these mental health challenges aren't coming to them directly?
Okay. Usually for everybody, you see a change. You see a change in their behavior. A lot of them begin to withdraw. A lot of them are always looking very sad and gloomy, and they feel like they're always stressed. They don't really want to socialize with the family, or sometimes you can find that they don't want to spend time with anybody. They just want to be on their own. They come back and their grades are dropping. There could be information, or there could be feedback from the teachers that say they're not attending their classes. They're spending time with the people who have negative influence to them. Maybe their friend circle has changed. You might find that they begin to work with a different friend circle that do things that are very unhealthy. So sometimes these are the things that you can look out for. A lot of the times you also find anger, irritability. They're so quick to snap, and they get so upset easily. Those are also signs for you to look out for. Sometimes, like I said, irritability, anger, then this could be anxiety. There could be anxiety. They're constantly worried. And sometimes they'll come to you and express it to you. But sometimes these are the things that you can look out for that are signs for you to begin to pay more attention.
Most definitely. I completely agree with you. There's a socio-economic impact of depression on our society at large. The majority of Nigeria's population is made up of youths. What do you see as some of the larger impacts, this new statistics of 1 in 6 Nigerians, youths suffering from mental health disorder? What do you think this impact is going to be on our economy at large?
Needless to say, if we do not address it now, we are going down a path of, harm and destruction. I don't want to really use those words, but what mental health challenges do is that they inhibit your ability to contribute to society. They inhibit your ability to have interpersonal relationships. So imagine a young person who is struggling to make friends, to keep friends, to have a relationship with their neighbor, with their parents. what does that person as an adult look like? You might have a lone individual who's constantly angry and wanting to cause harm to so many people because they're struggling to relate, they're struggling to have that relationship. That means at their workplace, they're probably going to struggle, because when you're in a workplace, you have to work with people. If you can't do that, you're going to struggle. If you can't keep a relationship, the older you get, you might have a challenge also. So for that individual, when you grow up, just the interpersonal relationship alone suffers. As a young person, if you're unable to go to school, if you're unable to have a skill, what does that mean for you as an adult? It means that you may not even contribute to society. You may not have the financial stability that you need. You might find yourself going from job to job because you can't sustain it. Sometimes we find that there's a history of substance use and alcohol use. And when you struggle with most of these challenges, we find that young people tend to rely on substances. What does that mean for an adult? If you have done that the rest of your life, you will find again, you fall off the bandwagon. You can't do anything. And it goes, we can literally map this across all mental health challenges: depression, anxiety, psychosis, any form of mental health challenge. If we do not address it as a young person, in adulthood, you find that these adults are struggling with society, they're struggling to develop relationships, struggling to work, struggling to just be part of society. So you might have those people just on the peripherals of society.
Most definitely. I wonder, because you hear a lot of banter on social media, that is anyone even sane in Nigeria? The fact that we're living in this country, you know, is it possible to keep a sane mind in this country with, you know, basic infrastructure missing, you know, the government, as I said in my introduction, opening fire on peaceful protesters? The abnormal is seen as normal and the normal is seen as abnormal. So, you know, we are having this discussion.
Oh, truth be told, it's hard.
It's hard to keep our sanity.
It is hard. And then can you imagine, you're already in an environment that is hard. You are in an environment that is very trying. And then you have a mental health challenge. That means you're already struggling on a double, you know, it's exactly. So it is hard for the young person out there. Socioeconomic status definitely is one of the leading factors for mental health challenge. And yeah, it's hard. I don't even know what to say, literally. Like, it is hard. So for the person who already has a mental health challenge, going into this environment can actually, and we have seen it. I mean, I work with people all the time, and sometimes it's like, I don't know what to do because I can't take care of your finances. I'm just there to help you walk through your challenges. Some people are born with mental health challenges, so they have nothing they can do about it except get the right mental health support. Some people, the environment does it to them. They just, you know, develop anxiety, develop depression, which we are beginning to see also. With the COVID pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, with the NSAS, there was a lot of anxiety, depression with young people. Sleep disorders, stress was just on the high with young people. So we can definitely see how the environment can cause quite a lot of harm for the young person. So we need to do something. Something has to be done.
I feel so bad for young people growing up in this generation. Like, social media and technology puts its own pressure. You know, in Nigeria, the government puts its own pressure. The social ills, you know, if you're not hanging around or don't have the right support group, you have that pressure as well. So I know back in our time, and I'm speaking like we're old, but we're not that old. We're really young. Although my nieces will beg to differ. But, you know, in our time growing up, we didn't have the pressure of social media. And we could choose our friends, therefore we didn't have to impress anybody. If someone put any undue pressure on you, you just say, oh no, you're not my friend again. Exactly. And you pick someone who you're like minds with, and you had your Christian or Muslim community who would also reiterate the values and, you know, shared commonality between you and, you know, the larger body. So we had that system, we had that support group that, you know, helped us retain our sanity and, you know, better our mental health. So for young people growing up right now, they're exposed to a diversity of information just through the, you know, click of one button on the internet. You know, there's so much pressure from their people they've never met before on social media, you know, because the world is such a global village now. And it's like there's a constant need to impress as well. Then, as we said, you know, doubling down on the fact that we're Nigerians living in Nigeria, you know, so I feel so bad for them, you know, and I wonder for people, because we also cannot negate the fact that Nigeria remains the poverty capital of the entire world. So people who don't have access to therapists, because therapists do cost a lot of money, what are some quick fixes or solutions that they can immediately deploy when they feel like their mental health is depreciating?
I always like to say to people, reach out to your loved ones. You have to reach out to the people that you feel comfortable with, the people that you feel will support you, the people that will listen to you. They may not be your immediate family, it could just be the auntie down the street that you feel like you can talk to. It could just be anybody. Just reach out. If you're struggling, reach out. And if you are a family member that you've seen someone that's going through a hard time, you will also reach out to that person. Because sometimes what mental health challenges do is that they can isolate you. And you don't know that you need to receive the support because you think you're doing the right thing. So the reaching out has to go both ways. In addition to that, I think it's very important for us to find almost like our tribe, our support system. One of the negative things about social media is that it's isolating. You just stay on your phone and you're pressing day and night and you forget to connect with other people. Growing up, we used to go and play football on the roads with our family, with the neighbors. You go and skip, you go and just hang out and chat, and you had that connection with people. But now we have lots of young people on their phones, on their tablets, playing games, and they do not socialize, maybe outside of the school environment. When you get back to your home, you're locked up in your room and you just don't socialize. So that tribe and that support system, that human connection, we need to get back to it because it serves, it's a big protective factor for a lot of us. And also, I think also when working with children or we're working with adolescents, as adults, we need to listen without judgment. That's one thing we don't do. We're so quick to point out, yes, if you did not do this, this would have not happened. You should have listened to me. When I was your age, this is what I did. We're so quick to jump in and tell them what they should do, but we don't listen. When we listen, we'll hear what the person is saying to us, and then we'll even know how best to provide the right support for that person. So listen and educate yourself too. You need to educate yourself about mental health. Mental health challenges are not death sentences. They're not. There are lots of people who have mental health challenges that are doing very well because they had the right support, because they had the right family, and they had the right people on their side. So just educate yourself. Even if you have a mental health challenge or your loved one does, there's really nothing wrong with that. People live full lives. I like to say, if you keep on covering it, it will still come up. So why not just deal with it?
Exactly.
Why not just deal with it? So seek the right mental health support. Yeah.
Very well said, honestly. But I must keep hampering on the fact that there's a huge lacuna between mental health needs and mental health funding. What is the role of government in providing funding for people who are not as privileged to fund their mental health challenges and needs?
So it boils down to policies and implementing some of these policies. Truth be told, some of the medications are actually very expensive. And some of the medications that have minimal or less side effects are very expensive. So you might end up going to go get a medication that has more of a severe side effect because it's cheaper. What the government can do is step in and subsidize some of these things that make it a little bit more affordable. There are facilities available and they'd be expensive. What the government can also do is also step in and use some of these existing facilities to subsidize the rates for people, for Nigerians to use it. Primary healthcare centers, the basic support needs to be available. You need to be able to walk into the nearest clinic in your community and you can get somebody to offer you a basic mental health care. And then if there's a need for you to escalate it, then they can escalate it or refer you to a bigger general center. But at the end of the day, the government has a role to play in providing affordable, professional mental health support for Nigerians. There's a lot that you can do. You can, like I said earlier, you can take advantage of existing facilities. You can reduce the costs by subsidizing the cost of medication and treatments. So yeah, there's a big role for the government to play.
And there currently is a bill in the National Assembly.
Yes.
Can you speak to us about that?
It hasn't been fully passed. We're just waiting for it. And the bill focuses on providing appropriate and professional mental health support for mental health for Nigerians in Nigeria. Mental health for Nigerians in Nigeria. However, it's still not passed. It hasn't passed the third reading, so we're just still waiting for, for that policy or that bill to be passed. And that bill looks at actually providing quality care. That bill looks at providing care even in the primary healthcare centers. It looks at steps about what to do if you have a mental health challenge, and it's not as comprehensive as it should be, but it's a step in the right direction. So once we're able to pass that, at least we have almost like a step up from what we already used to have, and we can always like refine it and work on it.
Most definitely. Finally, we saw the impact of COVID-19 on people across the world, across all different age groups and social stratifications. We saw the negative impact it had on their mental health. For Nigerians in Nigeria at this time, what can we do to redefine the way that we see mental health, redefine the way we react to people dealing with mental health challenges, given the fact that COVID-19 affected us all, and in fact, I could categorically say that everyone who, experienced it faced one mental health challenge or the other.
Definitely.
So how do people, I guess, naturally become more sympathetic and empathetic towards people who are dealing with mental health challenges?
Don't forget the NSAS that came and just hit us.
Exactly.
And it was, it was back to back for a lot of people. I think what COVID-19 pandemic has taught us is that nobody is immune. You're walking around feeling like you're good to go, and maybe you are good to go, but something out of the ordinary can just come and hit you, and you don't know how you respond. And in my organization, we set up a coalition of mental health providers, and we were giving like free support to Nigerians that would just call in, and a lot of people were calling in and like requesting help, and I know other organizations did the same. So it's to show you that anybody can have a mental health challenge. It's not as, oh my goodness, scary mental health challenge like we think it is. You and I can go to bed and wake up and develop a mental health challenge. It's like that. The environments that we're in can just cause us to, quote unquote, snap. And we can have, and the range is just there. So it's very important to know that when people experience these things, we need to show some form of compassion, because it can be you and I. Anything can happen and we can struggle. Literally, that's it. It can be you and I. Show some compassion. Education is very important. I like to say it. What we don't know, we tend to fear. Educate yourself. Something like stress is categorized under mental health challenges. And you and I go through it. Maybe we're not as chronic as the other person. Sleep disorders are mental health challenges, but we don't talk about that because we spend a lot of time emphasizing the bigger ones. There are other things that we can go through. So educate yourself, be a listening ear, support. We have a long way to go because of stigma of mental health challenge. And I usually don't really blame people, because for the longest of times, the narrative has been very negative. So it will take a while. But as you're listening, as you're learning, do better, change, educate other people, inform other people. And that's what the whole conversation is about, that, let's look out for each other. Let's look out for each other. Even as we stay behind our phones and press away, let's look out for each other.
Let's look out for each other. That's a fine place to leave it. Chinyere
Ugo,
clinical psychologist at Neem Foundation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. That's it for today's program. You can listen to the entirety of my interview on the Mindfulness podcast, now available on www.tostvnetwork.com. On there, you could also read news on sustainable development and current affairs across Africa. For everyone watching, youths and adults alike, if you're going through mental health challenges, kindly reach out to good counsel around you. It could be a leader in your local church or mosque, or better still, you can call a professional therapist. The helplines are now on the screen. It's totally free of charge. Personally, I found there is nothing more comforting than a gathering of like minds who share my same faith in God. It helps me stay strong and healthy mentally, and I believe it can help you as well. Still, this doesn't deter us from the fact that the government must live up to its responsibilities. by creating a conducive environment that will enable prosperity for all people, especially the youths. Stay in touch with us via our social media handles at The Osasu Show, at TOSTV Network, and at Osasu Igbenedion on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to see how we at TOS commemorate World Children's Day. I pray you have a happy celebration, and I'll see you same time, same place next week. And until then, stay blessed.